I'm going to start sharing my screen and we'll get started here in the workshop today. So I'm going to go ahead and use this document as a framework for all of our presentation today, just so you have kind of a general guide and structure to the information that we're going to talk about. So this is the how-to document for how to apply for funds. You can think of this as kind of a hub for all of the links and important, information that you need to get to when you're doing funding. So as you can see here, I went through the effort of embedding and hyperlinking a lot of things here. And all those links go to somewhere important. So if you need, a refresher on the information, or if you need to get to a certain document, this is the place you should start. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and go over this flow chart super briefly. I know a lot of you are more visually inclined, so that's why I created this flow chart to kind of better comprehend the stuff that's going to come below. But the first thing you should ask, right, is what type of funding are you using? Are you using ICC funding or are you using TNA funding? There's a distinct difference, and I'll go ahead and hand it off to Carrie here in a moment for her to talk about it before we dive into exactly the processes for each. But as you can see here in the flow chart, if you're asking for ICC money, there's quite a little bit more involved with that. You need to hold a meeting. You need a plan for your event, obviously, right? You need to follow a certain set of rules. You need to fill out an ARF, which is the second box, the second red box here. And then you need to go to Lancer Life and fill out a funding request form. And you need to also make sure to attach couple supplemental pieces of paperwork here. But after that, we elected a funding committee a few weeks back at our first ICC meeting, and that group of ICC officers will go ahead and approve or deny your request based on the contents of what you put down. And after that, you can go ahead and ask for reimbursements or payments to people. If you're using TNA money, you pretty much skip all that, but you need to make sure to add minutes when you're holding your meeting and planning for your budget. So before I dive into step one here, Carrie, what's the difference between TNA funding and ICC funding? What are those two sources?
So it's really about where the source of the money comes from. We have a student business service where any group can establish what's called a trust and agency account. It's a place where you can put your club funds, and those funds should be funds that were fundraised by your club if you did a donut sale or tamale sale, or these are funds that are donated to you by maybe someone who believes in your cause and wants to fund your group. Or it's money that the club sometimes will charge dues, and they'll put the money in there. So all your financial transactions need to go through our student business services. You cannot have an outside bank account. So your trust and agency fund is really money that your group has raised. ICC funding comes from the associate students, and the associate students is granted funds through what's called the student activity fee. If you all remember the $10 student activity fee that you pay every semester, that money goes into a pot, and the associate students, along with a few other shared governance folks, decide where that money goes. Off the top, associate students gets a section of money that they then are using to fund their events and activities. And then they also give a part of that funding to ICC to fund club meetings and club events, directly. So when you have that, because the money comes from the $10 fee, that's considered tax funds. So that's public money. And there are certain rules that govern that. So the big thing with the TNA versus the ICC is just where the money comes from and the rules that are attached to it. That's why we have different funding streams and different rules based on where it comes from. So again, remember, your trust and agency fund is money that you, the club, have put into that account for you. It's like a personal bank account. It rolls over from semester to semester. It does not disappear. You are allowed to do things with it, such as buy gift cards or give gifts to members or to speakers, because it is your money that you've raised. You cannot do that with public money, the ICC money. Think of it this way: if you pay your taxes and you find out that your elected officials are giving gifts to their friends or giving gifts to people who show up to events, and they're using public money, that's not an appropriate use of public money. So when you have your trust and agency account, feel free to use that for prizes or whatever you want to do because it's your money that you raised. The ICC money, when you apply for it, is really actually comes from AS, and that money actually then prior to being given to AS, it comes out of your pocket in that $10 fee that you pay. So those are the big differences with those. Trust and agency, when you apply for that money and you get a grant, it doesn't go directly. So for instance, say the baking club asked for $500 to hold a baking competition. We don't just send you a check and you spend it how you want it. We actually work with you to pay your vendors, reimburse folks. The money never leaves our account. We just pay for it and we earmark you on the books saying that this group can have that money. So that's it. Hopefully that's not too long-winded and it makes sense.
Okay, thank you, Carrie, for that. So these are the written steps, right? So if you're using TNA funding, I'm going to go through super quickly because this is really just two things you need to do before you get the money. You need to schedule a meeting, obviously, and you schedule a meeting by using the club meeting request form here on Lancer Life. Most of you have already done this. You know, this is basically the form telling us you're meeting every Thursday at 1 p.m. or Monday at 12 or whatever your schedule is, so that, you know, it's recorded in the system and that there's a paper trail for that. After you schedule a meeting, just use one of your meetings to plan for your event and budget for your event. Obviously, right, you need to have a list of things you're going to buy before you can move forward with asking for money. So the way we do that is we utilize what's called the meeting minutes form. So if you click through that link here and open this up, this is pretty much cookie cutter, copy and paste from the information that you hear during the meeting into this document. So just like I run the ICC meetings, right, where let me zoom in here, where I go ahead and this meeting was called to order by who? This motion was, this agenda was motion approval by who? You do the same thing, but we give you kind of like a fill in the blank, like a Mad Libs, right? Just fill in the information that pertains to that field. Just put a list of people who attended your meeting, up to 30 people. If there's more than 30 people that come to your meeting, you need to go past that. And then you look at this portion here, right? There's a motion. Whatever club you are wants to fund however much for whatever event to come out of your TNA account. And then this is a fillable PDF. So when you download this and open it up, you'll have the option to check this box. This last portion here is the most important. You need to break down exactly what you're buying, right? So if you're having a pizza party, you're buying a large pizza, however many large pizzas you're buying, you multiply it, add it up, you have a total. So that is that form, and that is the process for TNA funding. And then after that, you can skip to part 2, which is right here, part 2. So is that clear? Are there any questions about this, the process for TNA funding when you're requesting money to be used from that? No, yes? Okay.
No questions.
All right, thank you, Monica. So after that is the steps where you're applying for ICC funding. So it is a little bit more involved, but think about it like this, right? Whenever you go to a bank and you're asking for a loan, they are going to require a ton of paperwork, right? Because you're using the bank's money, not your money, to buy a house, buy a car, whatever the case might be. So it's the same idea here. It's a little bit more involved, but I'm going to go through it slowly, and I'm actually going to jump into Lancer Life and show you what the form looks like. So don't worry, I'm going to walk you through it. So this first step here, number 1, pretty much the same. You need to have a club meeting to plan for anything that you do, whether it doesn't matter what type of funding you're using your money from. So schedule a meeting using the club meeting request form. Again, most of you have done this already. It's just like you're telling us you're meeting every Wednesday at 1, Friday at 12, whatever your schedule is. So during that meeting, if you decide that you want to pull money from ICC funding, you're going to have to go ahead and use a couple of different documents than what I just showed. So you're going to go ahead and open up the funding criteria. And if I already opened it here, it's going to look something like this. So these are pretty much the rules stating what you can and can't fund. So when you're planning, make sure that you read through these rules and that you don't violate any of them, or you don't mistakenly use money that you're not supposed to, right? So these are the rules. Like you cannot, let me go through, I'm not going to go through all of them because that's going to take a while, but read through it, right? You can't get money for scholarships. You can't get public money and spend it on any fundraising, right? Anything that you do must have full disclosure of all expenditures. And I'll get to that in a moment and what that looks like, but read through the rules, make sure you're following them so that the funding committee doesn't remove any items or deny your event. So that's that part. So you have those rules in one hand, and the other hand, you should have this, what's called an event budget form. So very similar to the minutes form I just showed you, but a little bit different in that you have more space here to fill out the purpose of your event, the description, the date, how many people are going to attend, right? So you put down all that information on this first page here. And on the second page, the same thing shows up. You need to go ahead and put down each item you're buying for that event, right? Like, again, if we're having a pizza party, I'm going to buy a large pizza, and this is a fillable PDF, so you're going to download it and fill it out. But it's going to be a large pizza. You drop down, click this item type is food, and then you're going to multiply however many large pizzas you want to buy, add up the total, and then you move on to the next item. Like you want to buy plates or cups or whatever, anything you need. You have to have full disclosure of, right? So this is the sheet that you use for that. So make sure you have both of those items handy during your club meeting when you're planning, and fill those two things out during your meeting. So that's step one there. Are there any questions about that?
Yeah, this is Sophia from CSF. So I have a question for the second part of the last thing that you just showed. Since we aren't doing an event, it's an item that we're purchasing, do we not fill out those sheets?
You still have to fill out a description. So just go ahead and put down the description of what you're going to be using the item for. And then I know it says their event title, but just put down a general title.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a question. This is Junie from RN Club. So this semester we had a fundraising event where we went to Chipotle and raised some money, and we had some part of money that we're saving, and I think it's at TNA. And then we have decided that we're gonna have a like scholarship for essay and some money given out for and then the faculty member gonna read it. So do we still need to fill out a form in order for us to give the scholarship from that TNA?
Yes. Let your advisors know that probably sometime around April, because that's are you going to award the scholarship at the end of the year?
Like I think sometime around the May, we're gonna have like paper. They have to write essays and submit it, and then the professor, the advisor, gonna read it and choose a one person. And
Okay,
then we're gonna give scholarship to one student, but
Sure.
that's the money that we raised.
sure. So this is what you're going to need to do is that you'll need to just tell your advisor to hang tight. Around April, I'm going to publish new rules around scholarships because there's a way now that we have to legally send it out through the foundation. So what you're discussing is perfectly fine. I'm just going to let you know, though, that there's going to be some process. I know I hate rules, I hate barriers, but again, this is what the auditors are requiring us to do. So yes, you can do what you're talking about. Just be aware that sometime in April, you're going to get guidelines on how you can issue scholarship checks. Okay.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't matter whether it's this coming from ICC or TNA. We need to fill out a form, correct?
Scholarships can only come from your TNA. So whatever money you raise from Chick-fil-A, you have to deposit it in your TNA account so you can use it for scholarships. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Okay. So I guess my little bit confused part is it says fill out a form and have some kind of meeting. We have to have a meeting prior to giving out the check. Okay.
Everything has to be voted on, and there has to be a paper trail that your club advisor and whoever else that's an officer of your club agrees to fund from your TNA account. Because think of it like this, right, Carrie? What was the
Chris,
analogy
so
you gave
scroll
about the
up to your
camera?
Chris, scroll up to your flow chart.
Okay.
So there you go. So you see, if you're using money out of trust and agency accounts, it goes to TNA and then it says hold a meeting and record minutes. When Chris sends this to you electronically, these are all hyperlinked. So one is going to be a form so that you can complete an ARF to hold your meeting if you haven't already done it. And the other one is going to be the record of the minutes, which is the form you need to fill out saying that your club has agreed to fund. And you submit that along with the rest of your paperwork for your checks.
Okay.
Okay. So the nice thing is Chris is really technologically much more advanced than I am. So there is a flow chart and all you need to do is just click on those hyperlinks. We've tried to embed everything as possible. So you don't have to go anyplace else to find things.
But far as the holding a meeting part, that we are already part of this ICC. So do we put this hold a meeting just specifically for that scholarship or like?
So I want you to think of it like this. Your entire group raised that money. So technically everyone has a say in how that money should be spent. I need to know that your entire group, the RN club, is approving of that. It's not that ICC approves of it, because remember, trust and agency money is money that you earned. So we don't have a say in how it's spent. Your club does. So your club will hold that meeting, not ICC.
Okay. And when the club is having the meeting, could it be the like just the committee of the club and the advisor, or do we have to?
No, it needs to be the full. It needs to be the full club.
Oh,
because again, everybody, think of it this way: everyone should have a right to say how that money is being used because everybody had a role in earning it.
Okay. All right, I will relay that message. Thank you.
All right. So that is step one. Any other questions? I just want to make sure we're good on time here before we. But anything? Okay. So if you're applying for ICC funding, the first step is schedule a meeting. Make sure you have the criteria in one hand and the event budget form in the other, and make sure you're using the criteria to fill out your budget form and it agrees with the rules. Part two is if your funding request is for an event, make sure to fill out an ARF on LancerLife. If you go back to LancerLife here, there's an ARF form. An ARF is an activity request form. It's you telling me, the college, and telling Carrie that you're going to have something going on a certain day at a certain time. Again, everything needs a paper trail, right? So you have to fill one of those out. Now, once you're done filling out an ARF and it's approved in a system, you'll get an email in your student email address that it's been approved. And what you need to do next is step 3 right here, right? Get a screenshot of your approved ARF. So if I click through and it loads, everything on LancerLife, whether you know it or not, and for better or worse, has a record and it keeps those records. So any ARF that I turned in before, I can take a look at it. I can see who approved it, and I can look at the stuff that I put down. So make sure once your ARF is approved, go back to the page I showed you. Take a screenshot of it because you'll be needing that in the steps ahead. And if you don't want to click through that link that's on the how-to document, let me show you how to get to this page again. So from the home page here, you're going to click on your profile picture in the upper right. And then halfway down, there's going to be submissions. So you're going to click on this, the little drawer is going to open from the right. You click on submissions. And then you're going to click the little I next to the ARF that you turned in. You're going to take a screenshot of this. You can take a screenshot with your phone. If you know how to do it on a computer, it's print screen, and you're going to save it because you're going to need it later on in the steps. Okay. So there's this second part here though, right? If your request is not linked to an event, you can skip this step. So we know that a lot of clubs right now, it's a little hard to pinpoint and merge. Like we want to fund this event and it requires this amount of money. A lot of clubs are in a situation where it's like, we just want to buy an online subscription to like a service, or we want to fund something, we want to fund a couple items for our club. That's, but it's not like we're going to have an event and we're going to use those items. It's just going to be used throughout the semester, right? So that's okay too. You can skip filling out ARF, but just know that, most of the time, most of your things are going to be linked to an event and you are going to have to fill out an ARF. If we as the committee, and Carrie and I are going to take a close look at your submissions, decide that you're trying to skip this step and you're not turning in an ARF when you're supposed to, we reserve the right to deny your funding. So make sure that you know whether your event needs to be associated with your request, with your funding request or not, because most of the time it is. Okay, so any questions there, 2 and 3? Okay. So number 4 is kind of the big kahuna step, right? Like it's the big step that you're supposed to pay attention to, and where you collect, where all the information you collected from the steps above goes into step 4. So what I mean by that is, if you go ahead and go to Lance Your Life forms again, you see here there's spring 2021 ICC funding form, and that is the form you're going to use to submit your request to the committee. If you click here, it'll bring you directly to Lance Your Life forms. So same place, you just click start whenever you're ready and you have all the information, and then you go ahead and fill it out. So I'm gonna go ahead and walk through it super quick so you know what it looks like. I just had a couple of submissions that I put in. Again, the system likes to keep records, so it will show you if there's any, but most of you won't have anything yet. So I'm just gonna go ahead and press new. When I press new, there's this little blue box here, basically containing all the information from this how-to document in abbreviated form. If you ever lose the link or whatever, you can always come back to Lance Your Life, click here, and it'll bring you right back to that page if you need to take a look at it again for a refresher. Same thing for all these things here, right? Event budget form. So it will take you to all the necessary things that you lost that information. So this picture appears again. So by clicking next here, it's basically like when you're signing up for any other online service, right? Like you agree to the terms and conditions, right? This is the same. By clicking next, you agree that your funding request doesn't violate any of these rules. And if it does, the committee reserves the right to deny your request entirely or remove items from your request. So again, make sure you have this funding criteria handy with you when you're planning your event so that you don't run the risk of having items taken off. Okay. So this next part here, pretty self-explanatory. I think you put down your club name, associated students here, what is your event, pizza party. If your thing is not tied to an event, you can just put a general title here. For date of event, we can go ahead and put down tomorrow, for example, 3/13/21, and then just put a description of your event and what you're going to be doing. My description is pretty short. Yours will be better than mine, and it needs to be longer, but just keep that in mind. So when we come to the last step here, have you submitted an activity request form? Most of you, again, your funding is going to be tied to an event. So you are going to say yes, and then you're going to click next. So when you do that, it's going to bring you to this page. Name of the person who submitted the ARF. If someone else in your club submit the ARF, consult with them so they can go ahead and take a screenshot for you and pass it on to you so you can turn it in. But since I turned the ARF, I'm going to put in my own name. And it's going to require you to upload. Remember the screenshot I told you to take? It's going to require you to upload that picture that I just talked about before in the previous steps. Because again, with this form on Lance Your Life, you're gathering all the information that you brought in from the previous steps, all and funneling it down into here. So I'm going to just upload a sample file here real quick so we have it. So rename. this, open, okay. All right, and then we're gonna click next. So then you're gonna see this page, right? On this page is going to be the part where you upload the event budget form. So what's the event budget form? It is this page. Remember the 2-pager, you put down your description, your attendance, your event. So you're gonna fill it out. And once you fill it out, you're gonna go ahead and upload that file here. So I'm gonna choose that. Okay, and it's gonna upload. So once that's done, you're probably wondering what the second part is here. So this second part here is if you have any supplemental documents that you want to show to committee. I know in a lot of cases, right? I'll give you an example. A vendor will give you a quote, like this amount of items cost this amount of money, and we are going to quote you this much. So you can attach that PDF here if you have it. Other times it's like if a speaker wants you to sign a wants to give you an invoice to come to your event, you can also attach that here. So most of you are probably not going to need this, but we just put it here anyway. Please don't abuse this. I know you can upload anything here, but make sure that you attach relevant supplemental documents if you have any. The reason why there's so many boxes is because we know that a lot of students don't have access to like Adobe Acrobat, and that will allow you to kind of, paperclip or staple together multiple PDF documents. We know a lot of people don't have access to that. So use as many boxes as you need to go ahead and enhance your submission here. Okay. And after that, it's going to tell you the dates of when the funding committee meets. So you can go ahead and, because those are public meetings, you can look at the schedule and come to the meetings if you need to just watch us go over your request. So last step here, and probably the most important step. So, make sure you pay attention when you're entering in this portion here. This is the part where you're going to add a reviewer. My reviewer is going to be Carrie, and that is because she is the advisor. So your reviewer is also going to be your advisor or co-advisor of your club. But when you enter in their email here, make sure it's a pasadena.edu email address, because if it's not, the system won't send out the request for them to accept, accept the process here, right? So a lot of students trip up on this. Don't make the same mistake. Make sure you don't use personal email address. Don't use Gmail, Yahoo. Make sure you use pasadena.edu, and make sure that you put down your advisor so that they can look over your request and say, oh, okay, my club that I'm advising for is spending X amount of money for this thing. All right, and that's pretty much it. If I need to go back and revise my submission, I can click on any one of these and then do that. But since I think I'm good, I'm going to press submit. And that's it. So going back here to our document, 5 and 6 are kind of out of your hands, but it's just there if you want to go ahead and participate in the process. So once you submit it, the committee will review your request that you just turned in, and by the end of the meeting, ideally, if there are no issues with your request, again, make sure that your criteria, you follow the criteria, you will have an amount of money that you can spend after coming out of that, after that meeting is over. And step 6 is just telling you to move on to part 2. And this is where I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Carrie here. And because this is where, after the committee has approved your request, this is where you're going to be, getting the money and pulling the money from the account and paying people. Okay. But before I do that, before I let Carrie take over, are there any questions about that? Any concerns?
Just so I have it clear, even though for us it's not an event, we still fill out those 2 other half sheets, and we just put in description because it's not an actual event. But when we get to uploading documents, we don't have to worry about an ARF because it's not an event.
Yes, if it's not tied to an event, you don't need to turn in a screenshot.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, so Carrie, I will let you take over for part 2.
All right. So you've got the idea that we require a lot of paperwork. First, I'm going to share my screen.
Okay, let me enable it and then let me stop sharing.
So first of all, also please go look in the link, the chat for the link that will allow you to sign in. Okay. I'm crazy. I can't talk and Zoom.
I have a
at the same
question.
Time. Mhm.
So as long as we sign up for the event on Lancer Live, that counts as attendance, correct?
Yeah, if you follow this link that we just dropped in the chat,
Yeah.
that's fine. And I
Okay.
believe it should ask you what club you're with. And if not, we
Yeah,
have
it tells you what club you're representing.
perfect. Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's what counts for attendance. Okay. So I'm going to go through this quickly because I think you all pretty much know what the deal is. But I do want to also just show you, and you all can see my PowerPoint, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I
Okay.
see it.
Perfect. So 90% of the time, a lot of folks are just working off of reimbursements and they're reimbursing themselves out of their trust and agency account. So for instance, you may have bought donuts for the club meeting and you're taking it out of the trust and agency account, or for welcome week, rush week, you are buying a tablecloth or something like that. So it's usually something that comes out of your trust and agency account. We can arrange for you to get a cash advance. Usually it's between like $50 and $100, and then you're required to submit the receipts. But most of the time, folks are usually just able to come out of pocket. It's usually smaller things. So this is how you get reimbursed for that. And Chris, I didn't pull it up, but can you pull the requisition half form just so I can show too?
Yeah.
I just have it ready. I'll tell you when to flip to it. So
Okay.
there's some steps that we need to just go through. And again, I just want to make sure we understand the difference between trust and agency, TNA versus ICC. The big difference again is ICC money is your money. It's money that you raise, so you can spend it the way you want to, as long as your club is in agreement. How do I know that your club is in agreement? You can't just, Sophia just can't come up and tell me, hey, everyone agrees. And I'm like, no, I need to have written documentation. Like everyone else, I need to have a paper trail. So your club, first thing you're gonna do is set up a regular meeting for your club. And you just put this on the agenda and say, hey, listen, we want to have donuts at the next meeting. I need you all to, here's the item. It's not going to, when you put down this item, you really kind of want to describe it so that anyone who wasn't there can understand it. So it should look like something like, hey, we want donuts for the next meeting on March 16th, 2012. And not to exceed $20. And we need to make sure that you buy a apple fritter for Carrie because that's her favorite, right? Maybe not that last part, but just so you know, be very specific so that way folks know exactly what you're doing. So there's no question. So you want to go ahead and do that. And then you want to take a vote, make sure it's correct. You want to record that in your minutes and have your advisor and treasurer and president sign off on those forms. So just so that we know. And I also realize now that with COVID, it's hard for people to have wet signatures, meaning sign it actually by hand with a pen. And so some folks don't have a printer. What I'm willing to do is I'm willing to take an email from your advisor from their PCC email saying, I have read and reviewed this and I approve of it. So they can write a little statement using their email and I will accept that too, or they can also explain it. So they can say, you know what, the president and treasurer do not have printers. They have emailed me their consent and I as advisor agree. Just something that says, hey, everyone's in alignment. Okay. That's if you don't have the ability to do Adobe Sign. You can also just type your name in. I believe there are programs out there that are kind of freebie programs that will let you record a signature and then put it on stuff, and we'll take that as well. So make sure you do have your meeting, you vote, you fill out that paperwork. So I've gone out and spent $12 on donuts. My club has approved this. Okay, that's a big thing. Make sure you approve of it prior to you spending the money, right? So if I get a receipt, I bring in I get a receipt from Chris that is labeled March 10th and the minutes are labeled March 12th, then there's a problem, because then we may not approve of it because you have technically spent the money without the permission of the group. So make sure you always have the permission of the group. You can always leave it as a standing item on your committee, your agendas, to approve any expenditures. That way it's always there in case you need it. Once you have all that together, you've got the minutes, you've got the receipt. You want to take a picture of that or scan that receipt, and you want to keep the original. You're going to attach the form, the Club Minutes form, attach the receipt, and then you're going to go on to the next step, which is completing a requisition form. Okay, Chris, can you now pop that up, please? Okay, so this is a requisition form. If we were in person, you would have a booklet. We call it the booklet, the requisition booklet. It's a half sheet form. You want to make sure that you do things like fill out the name and street completely, that you want to make sure that you have the date. Nowadays it's all check. Had we been in person, we would have allowed you to get cash under $100. Now it's pretty much check, and we mail it to you. So you don't pick it up, we're going to mail it. If you're a person who is just having trouble pinning down an address to actually get snail mail or something mailed to their address, you can make an appointment. Let me know and we can make an appointment, and you can go to the bank and on an appointed time and date, and they will sign the check out to you. So we can do that. But most of the time now we're mailing the check. In here, you want to have a really good description of what you're buying for. 1 dozen donuts for the AS meeting on March 23rd, and then March 23rd. Then you put, that's in here. Then you put the amount here. Don't worry about any of this. We take care of that. You just want to make sure you take care of the signatures. And generally for club funds, we require 2 officers. It's whatever officers you want, and 1 advisor. So it'd be 2 officers and 1 advisor to spend this kind of money. So once you fill that form out, you're going to gather all your documents. Okay, Chris, go ahead, and I'm going to start sharing. We got a question. Okay, don't worry, we'll work with you on that, getting you all signed up. Here we go. Oops. Hold on.
Just quickly on the requisition form, there were 3 selections. One is the TNA, one is the ICC, and it had a /SAF.
Yep. Don't worry about that, because that's not what you're.
Okay.
You don't have to worry about it. Which one are you seeing? The one with the black screen or the one with the white?
I see right now reimbursements. That's what's in front of me right now.
Okay, you don't see, it's not black with it's not the presenter slides.
Yeah, I'm not seeing presenter view here. You're good.
Okay,
No.
so gather all those signatures. You got to send them around. Nice. It's nice that actually we're electronic, because now we can send stuff via email. In the past, you had to physically track your advisor down in their office or in their classroom to sign. So it's nice that we can send those. And again, an advisor and 2 club members. Now you want to gather up all this paperwork. Again, it needs to be the club minutes. It needs to be the invoice. And then it needs to be the requisition. All of those things then go to Sharon Hinton and myself. So email those to us, and then we'll go ahead and process that. And you always want to, if you ever are looking to track down where the money is, you can email me, but more likely I'm just going to refer you to Sharon, because she's the bookkeeper. So that's pretty simple. And that's really nice for like these small amounts of funds. In the future, in case any of you are going to be around next year, if you are part of a club that does a larger trip. So for instance, we have a lot of clubs that go and do college campus tours, and they'll cost $2,000-3,000 because they drive all the way up to Berkeley and hit, all the Northern California schools. So that can get very expensive. Anytime you're going to spend more than $3,000 or travel out of state, I need to know further in advance. I need to know basically the moment you are thinking about doing this, because I need to go to the Board of Trustees and ask them for permission. The Board of Trustees is basically the larger governing body that runs the college. So they have a right to look at all financial dealings and they have set the bar at $3,000. They want to have a say on anything that costs more than $3,000. So that's why I need to send that in. And also, these folks only do business once a month. It's the second Wednesday of every month. And so if we don't get our paperwork in on time, then your event cannot happen. So for the future, I don't see anyone right now. For the immediate future, I don't see anyone going out of state for travel, nor do I see them spending more than $3,000. Maybe I'll be surprised, but to kind of squirrel that away, lock that away for next year's group, let them know that if they're going to do something big, if Pie Club wants to have a huge party for Pie Day with stations here and there and speakers and performers and lots of food, that could cost $3,000. We just want to make sure that we know that far enough in advance, so that way we can make sure we have all of the paperwork done. Because I would hate to go to you and say, I'm sorry, you need to cancel your event because you did not get your paperwork in on time and we cannot get permission. So any questions about basic reimbursements, how that works? Pretty simple, pretty simple. Once you get one done, you know what's up. So the other thing is, I'm just going to go over very briefly, and if it does it, oh, there we go. Speak about contracts. It is quite possible that some of you may want to have a contracted performer or a speaker at your club meeting. And for those of you, you can ask for funds out of the ICC account for performers. I believe Global Club had a magician at their Thanksgiving banquet. You can get a comedian. You can do a whole bunch of stuff like I'm doing the escape room. All of those things involve like performance contracts, contract speakers, or venue contracts, right? That we're agreeing to contract or make plans for someone to provide us a service in return for cash or a check. So just understand now that a contract, let me ask you this, actually, you all get to participate. Who do you think can sign a contract on behalf of the college? Unmute yourself and just shout it out.
It's nobody in this room.
Anyone else have a thought on it?
I don't remember the name though. I wrote it down somewhere. Let me see.
Yeah, so let's give everyone else a chance to speak, Sophia. Anyone else?
Okay.
Shout it out. Who can do it?
I feel like it's a much higher up person.
You are correct. You and Sophia are correct. So basically, I can't do this. It used to be the Dean of Students, Dr. Rebecca Cobb, could sign. Now it's nowhere in that ballpark. The way it goes, you're right. You and Sophia are right. It's no one in this room. It goes up a higher level to Dr. Mike Bush. He is the VP for business services, and he signs all contracts for the college. So we need to make sure, and that what that means is that adds one more step. Before, when it was just our office, we could shuffle it around and get all the signatures and get you out the door. But now once we get all the signatures, it now needs to go to one more office. It travels across campus to the C building, virtually to Dr. Bush's desk, and he will sign it and complete it. A very big thing you have to understand is that any sort of contract, we needed to get to him with at least 2 weeks prior to the event. That way he can fill it out, feel comfortable signing it, and then it gets sent back, and then we're okay. We're currently in negotiations because a club got us the contracts after the date of the event, and he's refusing to sign them because the college was not given first right of refusal. And so again, we have to make sure who's there to sign it. So what does that mean? If you're doing this, you follow the same steps, you vote, you complete the contracts, you fill out a requisition form, and then you go gather your signatures. Why does it not move? There we go. And you're going to send all your paperwork to Sharon. Again, contracts and speakers and contracts for venues or items can be requested out of ICC. They can also be requested out of trust and agency. So just remember that if you're asking and it's not uncommon for this to happen, asking for ICC funding to pay for a speaker, remember that you need to follow all of the ICC funding steps. This is simply just the tail end, how to get someone paid. So I really want to make that distinction. The earlier steps were about how do you request money from ICC, and once you've been approved and funded, then this is when I come in on the back end with all of my forms and all of my signatures, and we route things through. So it's two very different steps for ICC funding. If you're paying for this out of your trust and agency, don't worry, just use it like a regular trust and agency thing. You just need to have the club minutes, you need to have all your paperwork, and you just submit it to us. So what does that mean? If I need to get a contract to Mike Bush 2 weeks ahead of your date, your paperwork needs to be to me 7 to 10 business days prior to that. So almost 2 weeks. With COVID right now, it's really hard. We're all impacted. We're all doing multiple things. Usually when we're back in person, we can probably process it in a week, but because of that COVID, it's 2 weeks. So now we need to make sure that we have all of this stuff in time to have the papers signed. Any questions about that? Also, one more thing, let me know that you're going to do a contract, because I need to get you one other form called a personal services agreement. I didn't really feel I wanted to show it to you here because there's so much paperwork. Let's not drown you on paperwork, but just understand that if you're going to do a contract or contract with someone to do an event, that you talk to me in advance, so that way I can get you the proper paperwork and make sure we chaperone it through the process. Any questions? Okay, this is the last slide. Now, this is going to be a bit controversial because I just told you I need all contracts 4 weeks prior. 4 weeks prior. The college also has a bunch of other funding deadlines. We work on a fiscal year calendar, which means our fiscal year for us ends July 1st, and they have to close out the books. So they want to have all contracts by a certain date. So for us, we need to backdate that to make sure that we have all contracts by April 1st so that we could process them to get them to their deadline by April 12th. So just understand that I need everything. Basically, if you're going to do a contract, I need it now. We will still be able to work things through, but I just want to make sure no one gets left out. So that's for the April 1st. You need to have all your paperwork done. You need to have your ARF. You need to have gone through ICC funding, or you need to have money out of your trust and agency account. A lot of times, some of these contracts are for limited amounts of money, so they're not very much. That's why I'm pretty confident I can still have this date and get your paperwork through. Is anyone thinking about doing any sort of contracts with a speaker or something like that?
We are with Father Tony across the street at St. Philip, but I'm trying to get it so that it's a voluntary thing, so we don't have to pay for it.
Okay. Just let me know, because again, for our office, we would like to have all contract material by April 1st. That way I can walk it through the process and get it covered. We still, like I said, a lot of our contracts are very low amounts, under $100. So we might have a little bit of play to squeeze things through as they get closer. But basically I understand, because June 30th is the close of the books, they are working from basically mid-May to close out all the requisitions for the entire college, not just us, everyone on campus. So everyone is putting their requisitions in, so their workload. So they're trying to balance their workload. So just know that we really need to have everything by April 1st. Also, the last day to spend any of your money is week. Oh, I need a calendar. Let me look it up. Hold on. You can't have any programming during dead week, and you can't have any programming during finals. So finals graduation is, I believe, the 11th or the 18th. Anyone know?
I think it's 11.
Okay, so that means there can't be anything happening on the 7th through the 11th. And I really highly discourage you from doing anything from May 31st through June 4th, because really you should be concentrating on classes. So the last day really that you can spend money is Friday, May 28th. So if you're going to spend any money, please make sure you spend it by then. If you're buying something and it just isn't able to complete the transaction by then, let me know so I can expect it. Okay. Again, the whole thing is with the corona and us being remote, is it's important that we communicate with each other and just keep me in the loop. Let me know what's happening, and that way I can make plans.
I'm sorry, what you said, May what?
May 28th, that's probably the last day that you really want to do anything.
Okay.
Okay.
And
All
I'm
right.
familiar with the terminology. Dead week, is dead week the finals week?
No, dead week is the week before finals. So
Oh.
finals, if finals happens, June 11th, that means the finals happen. Actually, finals this year are crazy. Finals actually, I think, are starting on the 8th and they continue to the 14th. For some reason, we're spilling over to the next week. But I don't want to see you all doing anything from May 31st to basically, yeah, stop doing stuff on the 28th is your last day. May 28th. Don't do anything after that. You all need to be studying. You all need to be students. You need to be studying for finals.
Okay.
That makes sense to y'all?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any other questions that I can help you with? All right.